Hey, so you want to build a blog using Next.js app router? Well, you've come to the right place. Today we're going to be covering a wide range of topics. By the end of this, you should be able to have your own Next.js blog using Sanity as a CMS. Alright, sweet. So let's just get started. npx create next app latest and call it my personal blog. My personal blog. You can name this whatever you like from this part onwards. And this npx is a package executor, so you don't have to directly download certain packages. It will just execute specific commands and functions for you. We're going to use TypeScript, yes. ESLint, Tailwind, CSS. Source directory, no, we're using the app router here. Changes the import alias, no, we're going to keep it the same. And now we're having our Next.js project initialized. Sweet, now if I list out the folders or files inside this specific folder, YouTube folder, you can see my personal blog. We're going to cd in, or change directory into that. We're going to initialize our Sanity project by using npx, so npx package executor, Sanity at the latest version init. And if you're not already logged into Sanity, it is going to ask you to log in or create an account. So create a new project. We're going to call it, you know what, YouTube tutorial. You can name this whatever you like. Use the default dataset configuration, yes. So it's creating a dataset, and yes. And now for the Sanity Studio, this is where you can edit all your data, the actual CMS in and of itself, and the vision tools and all the other neat features Sanity has. You can name this whatever prefix you like, so you can name it admin, studio. The default is just studio, so I'm going to keep it as studio. We're using a clean project with no predefined schema types. Yes, local environment variable file. I'm going to open my development IDE, and that is Visual Studio Code. So I'm running code and dot, that opens a directory, or that opens Visual Studio with the current directory you're in. Trust authors. Sweet, now you can see the project here. What Sanity has done is it's initialized and configured the Sanity client and the Sanity project. Added this folder. This is where everything's defined. So the client's defined here, the image builder, the schema types, the root directory, environment variables. And then if you go into the app router, you actually find the studio. This is what executes the Sanity Studio, where you can edit all your data. So if we now run yarn dev to spin up a server on port 3000. So now on the browser, I can head over to localhost 3000. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove all the boilerplate code that we just don't need. And then if I come here and I go const railway equals the railway with subsets of Latin. Lexical, yeah. Alright, sweet. So now, first thing we're going to do is we are going to create the Sanity schemas. So the first schema we need is the author schema, and we also need the blog schema, or the post schema. So for the author schema, we're going to export default and name. We're going to name it author. Don't name it authors, just name it author as one individual. That's the Sanity convention. Title, author. The type is going to be of type document, and fields. This is where we're going to start defining the actual fields inside the specific document. So first field, we name it name, of type string. and title, we give it name. Next field we're going to define is the slug. This is going to be of type slug, and this is what we're going to use for the navigation and for the queries to be able to find the specific post. And we're going to add options, source, and name. You're probably looking at this going, what the hell is that? What is options, source? That's just the way Sanity knows to provide a generate button for the specific type slug. It's like a neat feature they provide. And when you say source name, you're essentially telling it, hey, use the value from this field to generate the slug. I'll show you in a bit anyway. So to generate a slug from the name field. Next field we're going to define is the user's image, so we can display the user's profile. So here we're going to name it profile image of type image. This is a Sanity type, and it has specific options you can add onto it. And the options, hotspot true. This allows you to crop the image. So it's not the same as what you upload. You can actually crop it on the Sanity Studio editor. So that's the first schema we defined. We defined author. Next schema we want to define, so post schema. So we're going to export default, and this we're going to name it, we're going to name it post, title, post, type, same thing of document. There's other types like document, reference, whatever. There's many other types. They all have their own specific use cases, but we're going to stick with document for this blog post. And fields, we're going to start defining fields. So define field. So what are the fields we're going to need? We're going to need a few things. So obviously we're going to need the title of the blog post, title, description. So this is your blog post title. If you want to write that, whatever you want to write, of type string. Next, we're going to add, what else do we need? We need a description. So a blog post description. Title of description of, make this description, I don't know, brief, so the visitor knows what to expect in the post. I don't know, whatever you like to put in there. Type of string as well. And we're going to add validation to make sure that the user doesn't write, I don't know, more than 250 characters, just to make sure it's not a full-blown essay and it's just something sweet, short, brief. Okay, so now if we reference in the root schema types directory, so index.ts, this is where we define all our schemas. And if we reference the author schema, so we import that, and we also reference the post schema, and head over to our Sanity Studio. So if you come over to your directory here, localhost 3000, and you write studio, sweet. Now you're redirected to your Sanity Studio. You have to log in. Sweet. Now that I've logged in, we're in our Sanity Studio. You can see on the left hand side you have two sections. I'll make this larger. We have the author collection for the author documents and the post collection for the post documents. So now if we go into the author, and actually now let's go to the post and let's create a new post. We can see here that we have the title. So this is the description I was talking about. If I come to the post description here, and we have the description field as well, which is here. How do we validate and make sure that the user isn't typing too much? So what we can do is use a validation field which has a callback to a rule parameter, and this rule object, you can specify limitations or validation rules. So here we're using minimum of 50 and a maximum of 250 characters, and we'll say this field is required. We also need the slug, so to be able to query this. So if we come here and define a new field into the posts, and we name this field slug with title slug and of type slug, we can see here, okay, now we can see here that we have a slug field. We want to be able to generate it. So if the blog post is called how to become rich, for instance, we don't want to sit here and write how to become rich each time. So we can use the neat trick that I was trying to show before, options for this slug, the type of slug. We can use options, source, title, and this is going to generate a slug from the title field. So now if you refresh, we'll see the generate button. How to become rich? If you press generate, bang, it just generated a slug for us, nice and easy. What else would we need for the blog post? We'd need an image. So define field, name of image, type image, title, and options. So we want to do the same thing before to be able to let the user crop the image. So now if we refresh, now we can see an image uploading component. You can upload an image, and if you already have images already uploaded through Sanity in the same project, you should be able to press select and select any of those images. Next, we'd also need, well, content, so people can read what's going on. So we define the next field, and we'll name this content, or you can name it body, whatever you like. This is very custom right here. The only thing that really matters is type, so you can infer what type it is, and Sanity knows what type to render here. So type of this one's a bit of a funny one. So array, it's an array of, since it's an array, you can use this property of type and block. This is just Sanity's way of doing the text editor. So now we'll give it a title as well, call it content. Sweet. Now if we refresh, you should find a neat text editor where you can write, this is my heading, bang. You can make it bold, italic, H2, whatever you like. So now we'd also need to be able to reference who wrote this blog post, because now we have no idea. So what we're going to do is, so somewhere around here, we will define a new field of type reference. And what is it going to reference? What type of document exactly? To type author. And we're going to name this field author, and we'll give it a title author. So now if we refresh our studio, we can find the author component or author field. This allows us to search authors if we had any, and also create one. So I'm just going to go through and populate the data with an author and some posts. So now I've just gone through and populated some data on here, and all this is generated by ChatGPT, and these are all stock images that I just found off the internet. Okay, so next what we want to do, start working on the UI. So let's get started with that. We're gonna use ShadcN. So on a new, actually no, I'm gonna stop the development server. So Control C, and I'm gonna npx ShadcN latest, and we're gonna add a card, a button, label, and an avatar. So yes, we want a components JSON. You can use whatever type of, whatever style you like out of these two. So it's just New York, any color. Yes, sweet. So now you can see here it's created 4 different files in a folder named components and UI. So if you come here, here's the components folder it just wrote for us. Avatar component. This is why I like ShadcN. Really flexible. You can come in, add all these components with obviously preset class names and styles, consistent styles, and then you can customize whatever you like. We have a card, label, button, avatar. Sweet. Let's get started. So I'm going to close off everything, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to our home page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our header. And if we come here, components, create a new file, shared dash, and we'll name it header.tsx. We are going to RFC, generate boilerplate, header. Sweet. So now let's add this header to the root layout file. Sweet. So there's the header, and this is the root file. So let's add some styling to this. So class name. Let's go. So flex, we want it to be fixed. Inset of 0. Item center. Z index of 50. Height of 20. Background of background. And border bottom with a border of color border. And this is all defined in your Tailwind config, and all that is inside your global CSS file. Now if we check that out, there it is. There's our header, and now we need so this is the parent container. We're going to make the child container max width 1500. We don't want it to be spanning too long. Height of full. Flex row, item center, justify between. So label, UI label, and the label is going to be personal blog. So if we check that out, there it is, personal blog with full. Sweet, left side now. And let's add some styling. So font extra bold, text to XL. Cursor, actually, bang. And we want this to be a link to take us. So href root path prefix, SR only, this for accessibility, homepage, and put that inside there. Now we also want a light and dark theme toggle button. So to do that, we need to stop our development server, yarn add next themes. So documentation is here with ShadcN's website, Next.js. So we're going to start by installing next themes. We're going to create a themes provider that wraps the children. Obviously it's passed through as a prop. It wraps the children around it. So if we come over here, our components directory, create a new file called theme provider, copy paste. We can spin up our dev server again, and now we can add the theme parent provider around, or wrap our project. So just here, and we just got to import theme provider. Now we want a toggle button. So it's a neat UI. So this is the code. We also need a drop down menu. So let me copy this, and within our components folder, we'll create a theme toggle TSX, TS. There we go. Copy paste, and we're just missing the drop down menu. So components, drop down menu, npx, yep. So npx, ShadcnUI, drop down menu. And this is going to add the drop down component. Look, you can build your own components from scratch, but from experience it just takes a hell of a long time. And if you're doing full stack development, you don't have time to be wasting, to be honest. Whereas if you're just specializing in front end dev, we can add the toggle button to our header component, just here in the child theme. So call this theme toggle. Okay. Theme toggle, and if we come over here, so now we have dark mode. So light mode, dark mode, system. Let's just stick with light mode. Now you can see that once I resize the screen, it gets jammed in between here. So to do that, to fix that, we're gonna add some horizontal padding in a specific breakpoint. So to do that with Tailwind CSS, we essentially are going to write here with the mid breakpoint or medium screen. We are going to padding x-axis of 14, and bang, now we have padding. But when you get a smaller device, there's no padding. See that? Just beyond mid, bang, mid has it, whereas smaller doesn't have it. So smaller, we add a padding of 4. Nothing crazy. There we are. So now let's fetch the data from Sanity and render it here. If we come over to our root page, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a function called getPosts, and we're going to add our query inside here, return await client, so client, and fetch method with query as the parameter. Head over to your studio. Actually, see how the header is being rendered with Sanity Studio? It's because we placed the header inside the root directory, and Sanity Studio uses the root layout file as well. So what we do is to quickly fix this, we'll create a custom hook that will detect if it's in the Sanity Studio path, and then it wouldn't render. So here what we're going to do is create in the lib file, create a new file called use invalid paths, TS, not TSX. It's not a JSX component, and this is going to be on the client side so we can detect what path it's in. Use the path name hook, which will give us the path, and then we want to create an array of invalid paths, and one of them would be studio, and we're going is invalid. What we're doing is we're iterating through invalid paths. We're using the JavaScript sum function, which is throws a callback, and it's expecting a boolean, a true or a false. If this condition is true, whatever condition you like here, it will return true. So here we're going to path name, the current path name here. We're going to check if includes path. So this specific path, so let's say there's more paths, so let's say admin, there's other screens you wouldn't want the header to be displayed. It's going to iterate. So the first iteration is going to go through Studio. It's going to spit that into here, this callback. Well, this is the callback. And then if path name includes, let me import path name. Use invalid, my bad, in paths. Use path name. Okay, if it includes this inside the path, then it's going to spit true, and then it will be invalid. So we're going to return it. Return is invalid, and if it's not, if none of these conditions have been met, then it's going to return false by default. So to use this hook that we've just created, we're going to go to our header component, and since we are using hooks, we would have to make this a client component. So now we are going to use the hook, and to use that we're going to use invalid path, and it returns a boolean, and use invalid paths. And if invalid path, we're going to return some empty JSX instead of returning this. So now if we check Sanity Studio and refresh, the header component hasn't been rendered. Sweet. So if you go to the Vision tab, you can actually see how querying with Grok works. So the way it works is with this asterisk, we press fetch, it will actually fetch every single field in every single document in the whole dataset. And I mean, this is good, but it's a bit too much, and that's why we use querying languages. So what we want to fetch for our homepage is posts. So if we want to go, you can see here with our post collection and the post document here, and then we press inspect. So we have the fields we've created plus some other neat ones like updated at, rev ID, and created at. So an author reference. So here we need the type of post. That's what we're going to be querying on. So if we come here and we go type equals post, we'll be querying only the post documents, and you can see it's 3. So the image, author, slug, and the content. So now we can order this by the created at field here, and in descending order you can see it's changed. So with this, copy this, and within our query string we can add that there. And if we were to come into our, so if we come into the home page, and now we create a posts variable. Let's just keep it of any for now, and then we'll add the types. Await get posts, because it is an asynchronous function. There is an API call being made. The await, you can add async here with the server side functions in Next.js. And if we console log posts, we can now see the posts here, the 3 posts. And let's just add the types, so we can iterate through all the fields and render everything out while it's being type safe. So in the root, I'm going to create a types folder of index.ts, and we are going to use a namespace so we can keep everything organized. Export namespace, sanity types, export interface post, individual post of the fields we need are ID is created at of type string, updated at of type date. Actually, this is type date 2. Title of string, description of string, slug. So if you come here, we can actually see the slug type. So we come into the posts and check how the slug field looks like. So inspect, you can see that slug has a current property. So slug.current with the actual value of the slug. So we're going to write slug current of type string. So now we have image, and that's of type Sanity image asset document. Next is content and of any. We also need author. Author is, so export interface author in T-face interface author with the generic of T. We need the ID, name, and image of type T. So here, author with Sanity image asset, and it could also be undefined. So let's just define it as undefined also. So now we have our namespace with the types. Go ahead and infer the types. So Sanity types in the types directory of post, and since it is going to be an array of posts, we can add the array symbol at the end. Now let's start iterating through all the posts and render out on the screen. So we're going to create the layout. So flex col, item center, width full, background or background, div, another child container, height full, width full, flex 1, max width of 1500, which is consistent with the header, padding 14, padding X on the small screen 4, flex column and space Y of a 4. Now we want to use the grid layout, so div class of grid, mid breakpoint we want to use grid column 3, gap of 8, grid cols 1. Now let's iterate through the posts. So posts map of post, which is of Sanity types that we've just created of post, and the key is a number, and we're going to return just for now a div with a h1 of post title, just to see what it looks like. So now if we head over to our index file, our home page, we can see the titles here. Now let's style this up and make it into a card with the image and date. So here we're going to use the card component, card, and let's add some styling to us. So flex column, justify between, height of full, and now we got to use a div child component for the image. So now I got to use a div for the image. So let's class name space y5 space y5. Now div class of this for the image, so 96 image container there of 96 with the full overflow hidden, since we are just going to have the image just project all over the div. Rounded large. Now we're going to render the image with backwards, and source is of URL for, this is Sanity's image builder, so it takes in the properties from the image and then it builds a URL from it. So we're going to use URL for and the way to use this is URL for, so post and image, and then call the URL method, and this is going to generate a URL string. We're going to use the fill property, alt of post title. It can be whatever you like. You probably should add an alt tag with the image, but class name, height full, so we want to fill the 96 height. Object, cover, aspect, auto, width full. Now if we look here, the images will not render because Next.js will only allow you, or the image component will only allow you to render images from whitelisted domains. So the hostname CDN content delivery network sanity.io is not configured under images in Next.js. Next config. So to configure this, we are going to come to our next config file and add whitelist our CDN domain for the images. So images, and under the images object, we're going to write remote patterns and protocol of HTTPS, hostname of CDN Sanity.io, so same as this, CDN Sanity.io, and port of not specified. Now we have to oh, actually that's new. Okay, so found a change in the next config and it just restarts the development server for us. Now if we refresh, we should be able to see the image. The images have rendered. If we come over here and add relative, we will be able to use the fill property properly. And now we can see the cards have been rendered. Now let us render the title, description, date, author's image, everything. So div of class space y 3 px 4 py of 2, so padding vertical, padding horizontal. Div class flex row item center space x2, and of calendar icon. Actually, let's install Lucid React. So yarn add Lucid React, and this is just an icon library that's just amazing. Sweet. So if we just import calendar icon, and now we give it a size of 20, class name of text primary, and right next to that we want to render the date that the post was created. So post, so new JavaScript instance of date, and we're going to call the toDate string method from that. We render this. Sweet. Now we have that rendered. If we go into ShadcN, and we can customize the colors actually. So you can customize and choose any color you'd like. Let's choose red and copy code. Bang. Global CSS, where is she? Global CSS, and we can just change these to change our primary and accent colors. So now if we head over back to our file, we can see our new primary color is red. Let's make that text last name font medium. Now we also need to render the post title and post description. So post title and post description. Sweet. Now let's give it some styling. It looks a bit out of place. First thing is we can make the text larger, font extra bold, and let's see how that looks. And also add a read more button. So we can add a button for and button class name with full with a variance of outline with a text that says read more, and bang, and sweet. Now let's add some responsiveness because this just looks dry. So if we come here, we can add an overlay absolute as if 20. So only when, so if we look at it now, we've added an overlay, but we want to render it only once the user has hovered over anything of this parent container. So the way to do that is let's create a root parent container. And add the key property of key, class name, space y5 of group, cursor pointer, okay, of group, and group is going to allow us to use the group hover. So if we go into our child component of the overlay and we added group hover opacity 25, we can see now there's the overlay, but it's all jittery and stuff, so we can add some transition. So transition all, duration of 200, ease out. That looks much nicer. Now we actually need to be able to press it and it take us to the blog post page. So we will use the link, the Next.js link component with an href to our not yet defined page, but we'll define it and create it. So post with post slug current. So with this path name and route prefix, the way it works is under app, we go to create new file called post, new folder called post with a file called open brackets slug. This is a folder, sorry, and then a page called page.tsx rfc for a code snippet boilerplate page. So now we want to be able to get this post variable or this post search parameter from the URL. So if we press onto one of these, you can see it redirects us to this URL, post dash and then the slug.current, which is the slug. But we want to be able to use this. So the way to do that is params of slug, and let me just define this so TypeScript's happy. 1 second. Params of slug, and that's the type string. So this could be any name, just based on this name, and that's going to be passed through. So console log slug, and if we come here to our console, you see the console's logging the slug. Now, how do we fetch it or fetch our document or post based on the slug? So if you remember last one here, we use the get post function, an asynchronous get post function, and with this grok query. So now we want to be able to use the same Grok query, add a condition to it so it matches the slug. So create an asynchronous function, just like before, get post, individual post, with a prop or a param of slug of type string, and we are returning a promise of any. Now, const query and return await client dot fetch query. So client, make sure you import client query, and now we can actually pass a parameter or dynamic variable or value into the query itself. So this one's going to be slug. We'll use this, and we don't need order by because it's just one post. So query of type post and slug.current will have to equal slug, and this slug is what we pass through here. So the thing with Sanity is it will still return an array. Even though it's one document, it'll still return an array. So the way we fix that is of the 0 index. So now if we were to add the post into a variable of sanity types post equals await get post, just like before, with the slug parameter and the asynchronous method, make sure it's asynchronous. We can now console log get the post. So if we come to our function and reload this page, this is the slug. Oh, here is the post with that slug. So slug.current, and that's what we're querying based off. So slug.current. We don't need all these extra properties like rev or a lot of other properties. So we can actually define the exact properties we need. So if we come here, we can say, hey, Sanity, we only need, okay, what properties would we need? We need the created at, we'd also need the ID, we need the title and description, and also the content and image. Now we get all of the fields we've defined or asked for and nothing more. Sweet. Now let us actually render the blog post. Since we have the blog post here, we can actually go ahead and render it. So let me create the UI. So let's get started. Flex column, item center, width full, background or background. And now child div, class name, height full, width full, flex 1, max width of 1500 pixels, being consistent, padding bottom of 24, medium breakpoint 14, padding top 32, and padding X of 4, flex column and space Y of 4. Now let's add the label to be of the post title. Sweet. So you can see the post title, it's a bit small, so let's make it a bit larger. So class name, not flex, it's not a div, text 5XL, max width of 4XL, we don't want it too large, tracking tighter, we'll make it look neater, font extra bold. Sweet, that's the title. Now let us render the author. So div class name flex row, item center, space x3, or you can even do gap 3 or gap x3, but I'll just do space x3, padding bottom 2, and another div because we're going to render the date and as well. Div class name flex row, item center, space x2, avatar component that we got earlier, make sure it's from the components file, not radix UI. So avatar, and we use the avatar fallback component, make sure it's from the components folder, to be of post author name substring of 01. So it's just the first letter of the post or author name. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so we can't actually access the author field, because it is only a reference. So if you look here, the author property just gives us a ref, so it's type ref. So somehow we need to fetch the author based on this ref value and it be included in this document. So basically expand on this. So the way to do that is really easy with Grok and Sanity. You just add this, and that just tells it, hey, expand this and actually get the reference, fetch the document based off the reference. So if we refresh that, we'll see that new document that's fetched has everything for the author. Name, image, slug as well, and updated that, everything. So now we can actually access the author's name. So let's continue building the UI. So let's do author's name. So post, author, name, class, font bold. Let's see how that looks. Sweet. That's looking pretty nice. Now let's actually, this should be here underneath. Yeah, this is centered. Sweet, that looks better. Now let's add the date of when the blog post was created. So div p tag of a new date instance, new JavaScript date instance, and post, and created at tag to date string the method. And now it should render the date it was created. So add the icon as well. Calendar icon from Lucid, size 20, color, well actually class name text primary, and the parent container of these two elements should be flex row, item center, gap x2. Sweet, that's looking pretty nice. Now let's render the blog post's image. So to do that, we will come along and render. So this is the, yep. So we're going to render div class name, width full, height 96, max height of 96, relative, because we want to be able to use overflow hidden with the fill just like last time. So image from next image, source URL 4 just like before, post and image dot URL method, alt tag, let's do post title, fill, and also class name, height full, width full, object cover, and object center, rounded large. And let's check that out, see how that rendered. Sweet, that's looking pretty good. Now we want to actually render the article. So to do that, we will use a package called Portable Text React. So if we go to Google, Portable Text React. Here it is. And the way to use this is we'll first need to install it. So yarn add Portable Text React. We'll essentially just render the JSX with the value prop being the content array field from the Sanity schema. So that's done downloading. We will come along here and add portable text value, and the value is post content. And let's see how this renders. Sweet. How do we style this though? That's the big question. To style it, we can use Tailwind. So first article, element, Tailwind's pros, C, and pros large, or large screen, padding top of 6. So we need to use Tailwind CSS typography. So yarn add actually. So let's go to Google. Tailwind CSS typography. Tailwind Labs. To install this, install as development. So yarn add, and we're adding Tailwind CSS typography, and then we add the package into the plugins. So Tailwind CSS, so Tailwind config.js, where is she? Oh, TS, theme, plugins, and we can add require Tailwind CSS typography. So wait for this to finish. Sweet, now that's rendered. And we'll go back, close this. So with the large screen, and then also because when we go to dark mode, it's not going to render properly. So the way to fix that is to use the dark, pros. Sweet, there we are. Now we go to the home page. We can go to another blog post as such. We go to this blog post. Sweet, everything's blazingly fast. But now, if you were to come into your Sanity studio, so now if you come to your Sanity studio, you'll notice something. And that is, if you make any changes to your blog post, for instance, this last blog post, so we say unlocking my creativity instead of unlocking creativity, and publish the change. And we publish the change, and you head back over to your homepage and refresh. It doesn't update. It doesn't add my. And the reason for that is everything's been cached onto our local development server. So the way to overcome this and actually be able to keep your blog post up to date is to use or to implement incremental static site regeneration. Every time you come to fetch, it's going to cache it, and if it's already been cached, it's not going to serve you updated data. It's going to use the cached data, but we want fresh data. So to fix this, we're going to go to our Sanity client, library, client, and then turn off use CDN, content delivery network. Good, set it to false, and then we're going to use Sanity's or Next.js's revalidation variable, and that essentially what it tells Next is to revalidate. So export const revalidate 60. So it tells Next to revalidate every 60 seconds. Revalidate API call every 60 seconds. That way we'll get fresh data every 60 seconds. And if we test that now and we refresh, there we go. We have unlocking my creativity. We can make this 10 seconds, we can make it whatever you like. So if we now test it and we turn it and we change it back to unlocking my creativity, unlocking creativity, and publish. Sweet. So now if you come here, refresh, you'll see it wouldn't change until now, after 10 seconds. So let's just keep this at 60. And let us go to the post and also add the same thing. Export const revalidate 60. Let's add Magic UI's. So if you go Magic UI shine border, we'll just quickly add this. So npx add. Mind you, this is optional. You can just quickly skip through it, but it looks pretty nice, so that's why we're adding it. So add it here. So shine border, it's added the component to our UI, shine border. Sweet, now we have this cool shiny border made by Magic UI. So that's why I use component libraries, because it's so much faster and you can keep everything looking consistent and nuanced and modern. Alright, sweet, now to get onto the SEO. So now we want to be able to render different metadata tags for search engine readability. So if you come into the header or head component, you can see there's nothing here. There's no title tag, description tag, nothing. Since we are dynamically rendering different values for each property, like the title, description, OG image, and also the open graphs data. And to do this, we can use Next.js generate metadata API. So if we come over here, Next.js generate metadata, we can use this function that allows us to generate metadata. Where is it? There it is. Here, asynchronously even, so we can make any API calls we need and get the latest data. So the way it works is, we're going to export an asynchronous function, generate metadata, and we are going to get, so it has params as one of the parameters, and then search params of type props, and we're going to define the property, the props here. So type props params, and we've got the slug, and search params is of key string we're not going to really use it, but why not? So undefined. Sweet. Now we want to be able to generate metadata, so we're returning a promise of the type metadata. And if we come into this type, these are all the fields or properties we can add into the metadata object that we return to next. So first we can query the latest version of our document or post. So type post and slug.current equals slug. We need the ID underscore ID. We need the title, so title, description, and the image. We also need the first index since it is one post only. Now const data equals await get await client fetch query with these params passed through, and now we can return, so we can have application name to be my personal blog creator Yahya, metadata base, new URL. So let's just add a global variable, site data.ts, export const site, and name could be my personal blog, and URL, because we're going to use this quite a bit. You change this to your production URL, but URL port 3000. Now we return site URL with title being data title, description data description, and the open graph, this is for social preview, so I'll show you what it looks like. Title, description, and data description. And then we have images, URL for data image.url. Type is a website, or we can do article even. And then local locale is for me ENAU, Australia. Authors could be just your name. Now, once we refresh the page, Next.js is going to generate all the metadata tags. So if we come over here and refresh, actually, this is meant to be inside the post page with the slug. So generate metadata, so metadata. Yep. So now when we actually go to the post page, you'll find that Next.js will actually generate all the tags for us. So you can see here we have the OG description, the actual description tag, the title, the OG title, locale, the OG image, and a bunch of other goodies for our SEO. Now you can also add what they call schemas. So if you go to schema.org, so it will essentially look like this. JSON LD. So this is schema structured data, and we're going to use it as well to increase search engine readability, and so that the search engines better understand what our content is about. So since we are using TypeScript, we can add a library or dependency called Schema DTS. And it's just going to help us keep everything type safe and keep our schema structured data valid. So we can use schema generator. If you go Google, and first one, what type? It can be an article, and you just fill all this stuff out and you can generate a schema. So how do we actually inject this into our code? So to do this, we are going to, into our components, we are going to create a file called structured data tsx rfc for the boilerplate, and what we're going to do is we are going to take in a prop called data, and data could be of type any, and we're going to return a React JSX element. Now we are going to use the script tag, script, and ID of structured data of type of application LD plus JSON. Now dangerously set in our HTML, and then HTML of JSON.stringify data human, so double underscore. Now we can actually define a structured schema. So schema data with context. So let me import with context. Import with context from schema DTS, and we're going to pass the generic blog posting type, and then now we're going to define some of the fields in this object. First one will be context of https schema.org. See, it helps you type it. So now type, that's why this dependency is very good. Blog posting, headline of data, or actually post title, description of post description, image for URL for post image dot URL, and there's this neat syntax, so if it's undefined we'll just quickly give it an empty string. author of type, person, name is post, author, name, URL, and I'm just gonna put my LinkedIn URL, but you can have this dynamically from the post. Main entity of page with ID of sites.url, and then also date published. We're using the moment JS library, so quickly just add that in, and we're gonna pass in the post created at field or variable, and then format it into this specific format because that's the format Schema org uses. Sweet. Now we've created the actual structured data, but now how do we inject it into our code? So now we use the empty JSX component and add structured data, and then we pass the data prop that we defined earlier in, let me show you, pass the data prop, and we'll pass in schema data. And now if we come into our page, we go into our page source and then actually search schema, you'll find that it's been injected. The script tag has been injected with the data, how to overcome mental blocks and spark innovation, from that blog post. If you found this video valuable, I'd really appreciate if you give me a cheeky thumbs up and if you punch that subscribe button for me. Peace.